Boxing fans filled the arena, ready for the historic fight between Canelo Álvarez and Terence Crawford. The lights dimmed, and the crowd expected the usual entrance music. But instead of hip-hop or Latin anthems, the sound of pounding drums and eerie guitar tones filled the air. People turned to each other in surprise. Was this Tool? And then it was clear. Yes, Adam Jones stepped onto the stage with his guitar, and Danny Carey took his seat behind a massive drum kit. The audience gasped. This wasn't just an opening, it was a shockwave. Tool members at a boxing match? Nobody saw it coming. The fighters hadn't even entered the ring yet, but the atmosphere already felt electric. The mix of sports and progressive rock created a moment that fans would talk about for years. Everyone knew this fight was going to be big, but with Tool kicking things off, it had just become legendary. People instantly started asking, why Tool? Boxing and progressive rock weren't exactly common partners. Most fight nights featured rap stars or mainstream pop icons. Tool's dark, heavy, and complex sound was the last thing anyone expected. But that's what made it work. Both Canelo and Crawford were fighters known for their discipline, patience, and technical brilliance. In a way, Tool's music reflected the same qualities. Complex time signatures mirrored the rhythm of boxing. Adam's guitar echoed the slow build of a fight. Danny's drumming captured the thunder of punches landing in the ring. Fans who didn't know Tool were stunned by the strange but powerful performance. Longtime rock fans, however, couldn't believe their eyes. They never expected to see their heroes in the middle of a boxing spectacle. The arena transformed into something more than just a fight venue. It became a stage where music and sport collided. Tool had turned the opening into something mysterious, epic, and unforgettable. Adam Jones stood at the front of the stage, his Les Paul guitar gleaming under the arena lights. He didn't speak, he just let his guitar do the talking. With each note, tension built across the crowd. It wasn't a full Tool concert, but it felt just as intense. Adam's riffs were heavy, dark, and hypnotic. Every time he bent a note, fans screamed louder. He moved slowly, almost like a fighter himself, pacing, waiting for the right strike. For boxing fans unfamiliar with him, it was a crash course in how powerful a guitar can be. Adam's style fit the moment. He wasn't flashy, but he was precise. Every sound mattered. Just like a boxer, he knew when to hold back and when to unleash force. The music wasn't random, it was storytelling. As Adam played, the crowd could almost feel the battle that was about to take place in the ring. It wasn't just an intro anymore, it was a warning. Suddenly, the drums erupted. Danny Carey, sitting behind one of the most massive drum kits anyone had ever seen, unleashed a storm of rhythm. His arms moved so fast, it looked like he had 4 hands. The bass drum rattled the entire arena, making the ground shake under people's feet. The fight hadn't even started, but it felt like punches were already being thrown. Each strike of the snare was like a jab. Each booming tom was like a body shot. Danny wasn't just playing the drums, he was translating boxing into sound. Fans stood up, clapping along, even if they didn't know the music. The energy spread through the arena like wildfire. This wasn't just music, it was power, raw and alive. Danny smiled as he kept the beat, fully in control of the chaos he created. For Tool fans, it was a dream. For boxing fans, it was a revelation. The fight was minutes away, but Danny Carey had already delivered a knockout performance. At first, the audience was confused. Some boxing fans frowned. This wasn't the kind of opening they were used to. But as the performance grew, the confusion turned to excitement. People started chanting, cheering, and recording the moment on their phones. You could see it on social media instantly. Tool is opening the fight? Flooded Twitter and Instagram. Hashtags spread like wildfire. The moment was too unusual not to go viral. Rock fans watching from home couldn't believe it. Some even tuned into the pay-per-view just to catch the performance. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It had become a cultural moment. By the time the fighters entered, the crowd was buzzing. The mixture of adrenaline from Tool's performance and the anticipation of the fight created an energy so strong, people could feel it in their bones. Tool had stolen the spotlight and set the stage perfectly. When Canelo Álvarez walked into the arena, he couldn't help but smile. He knew fans were surprised, but he also knew the music matched the mood. The slow, heavy build mirrored his fighting style, patient, powerful, and devastating when unleashed. Terence Crawford entered next, and his eyes lit up. He nodded to the beat, clearly enjoying the unexpected performance. Crawford had a reputation for being calm and collected, but Tool's sound seemed to fuel him. Both fighters looked energized, almost as if they were stepping not just into a fight, but into a war. The music gave them a sense of ritual, like gladiators entering an ancient arena. For a brief moment, boxing and progressive rock became one. Fighters and musicians shared the same stage, united by intensity, focus, and fire. It was clear the performance wasn't just for the fans, it was for the fighters too. Boxing is all about rhythm. Fighters train to find the right tempo, the perfect timing for each punch. Tool's music, filled with odd rhythms and shifting tempos, strangely reflected that same idea. Danny Carey's drumming wasn't just noise. It was a reminder that timing is everything. Adam Jones's riffs weren't just sounds. They carried weight, like a perfectly placed strike. The performance worked because it wasn't trying to be flashy. It wasn't about pop glamour or catchy hooks. It was about intensity, tension, and release, the same qualities that make a boxing match so powerful. Tool didn't just play songs. They created an atmosphere. By the time the first bell rang, the audience was already in the right headspace. The fight felt bigger, heavier, almost mythic. What seemed odd at first turned out to be perfect. Tool had captured the essence of the fight without even mentioning it. Whoever booked Tool for this event took a huge gamble. It could have backfired. Imagine boxing fans booing because they didn't understand the music. Imagine fighters feeling disconnected from the mood. But instead, it was a triumph. The risk turned into one of the most memorable openings in boxing history. Fans were blown away, and the internet lit up with praise. The performance wasn't long, but it didn't need to be. It was sharp, focused, and unforgettable. Tool didn't try to dominate the night. He simply set the tone, then stepped aside for the fighters. The bell rang, and the fight was finally underway. But something felt different. Tool's performance was still echoing in people's minds. Every punch seemed heavier, every movement sharper, as if the fighters were moving to the rhythm that had been set minutes earlier. The crowd roared with each exchange. The fighters delivered exactly what fans came to see, but the energy felt elevated. The fight had been framed like a story, and Tool had written the prologue. Even as punches landed and sweat flew, people couldn't stop talking about the opening. It had changed the mood of the night. The fighters were locked in battle, but Tool's shadow lingered over the ring. The performance had done its job. It made the fight feel like more than a sport. It made it feel like history. When the final bell rang and the fight ended, people knew they had witnessed something special, not just because of the clash between Canelo and Crawford, but because of the way the night began. Years from now, fans will still talk about the surprise opening. Tool's Adam Jones and Danny Carey turned a boxing match into an event that felt cinematic, almost mythical. The fighters gave their all in the ring, but Tool gave the night its soul. They proved that music can change the way we experience a moment, even in a sport as brutal as boxing. Fans walked out buzzing, replaying both the fight and the music in their heads. It wasn't just a sporting event anymore. It was a story. And in that story, Tool had carved their place as unlikely heroes of the night.